Alright, so I think I've hit burnout now. Writing this. The intended audience for this is not mainstream academia. This is intended to be post-scientific. There's quite a bit to this now. Okay, my my laptop is freaking out. I can't. The pointer mouse is. There we go. There it works. Yeah. The intended audience for this is not academia. This is, by design, intended to be unpalatable to academics. Offensive, frankly. To the point where they're going to look at this and be like, no, fuck that. One, there's no proofs for anything, and there never will be. Not from me. If somebody else wants to prove anything that's in here, that's whatever. That's your own waste of time. But fundamentally, I do not buy the argument that modern proof theory even makes sense, that it's valid. Particularly given that things like the Peano axioms are accepted. Dedekind cuts are accepted. It's like, no. You guys can't even explain how exponents work. Right? But I have up here a unified equation that not only completely explains how all exponents work, but it encapsulates all of multiplication, all of division, integration, multiple integrals, differentiation, volumes and volumes of any shapes, logarithms, even a kind of logarithm that is not classically possible. So like here, the thing that's happening here, you can't do this with any like graphing calculator or it's like any hardware that exists, or like in the way this is written, it's wrong. This isn't correct, because the only kind of logarithm that's conventionally allowed is logarithms of values. So if you type this into anything, what it's going to try to do is going to evaluate negative cosine of x, and it's going to take, like, at some value of x, and it's going to take log base that value of that value, multiply it by sine of that value, and you're not going to get 1. You're going to get something else for sure. Because what this is doing, this is taking log base the dimension x, not values of x, the entire dimension, what that dimension is. It's taking that logarithm of the dimension, base dimension, of the function over that dimension, negative cosine x. That's not values. That's the entire function at once. Not values, the function, right? And it's multiplying that result by sine x, and that then is 1. And what that 1 means is that negative cosine x is the integral of sine x. And this negative 2 means that negative sine x is the second derivative of sine x. So this isn't the right way to write this, because this means something conventionally, and it means something different from this. Okay, so this isn't a mistake. I just don't know how else to write this. Right? This is my unified equation being able to do something that conventional mathematics can't touch. And there's a lot more of them than that. This is what I can get on one page in 10 point Times New Roman. like well organized. But I feel like this is a thorough enough demonstration that we can unify all of these things with this single equation. Boom. There it is. 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 The same exact equation. I literally copied and pasted. I wrote it here once and then copied it and pasted it, pasted it, pasted it, pasted it, pasted it. I didn't rewrite it because it's exactly the same. There's nothing to rewrite. There's no reason to rewrite it because I don't have to make any changes to it. The thing that changes are the input values. And there's other things you can do with these input values which yield quote unquote operations that are completely impossible, like unrecognized by conventional mathematics. I'm aware of some of these. I don't think I'm aware of all of them, but I haven't documented any of them yet, not in a public way. So, yeah, like, whatever. Sit there and be like, oh, you're not rigorous, you don't have proofs, but I can do more than you, including explain why 0 to the 0 is 1. I can actually explain that. You can't. Right? You're like the French mathematics community in 1830 who doesn't know how to subtract 7 from 5, telling Évariste Galois that he wasn't being rigorous enough. Like, that you're out of line doing that. You're wrong. What the fuck are you doing? No, and I want this to be unappealing to that community because fuck you. Like, the hell is, where do you get off? Where do you get off? Like, all of this is documenting crap that you're wrong about. Systemic abuse in the way mathematics is taught and how it relates to diagnoses of dyscalculia, which is connected to diagnoses of, right, common comorbidities of with dyscalculia being dyslexia and ADHD, right? This is the reality of what you're doing. I don't want this to be accepted by mainstream academia. My goal is for this to be picked up by lay people. Here you go. Here you go. This is how you do all of it. One operation. It's not even an operation. It's a, I don't know what you would call this. When you fully understand it, which there isn't enough information here to fully understand it, but there's enough information to reasonably partially understand it, probably usefully understand it. Yeah, like, you can do so much more than current mathematics can do with just this one unified equation. This shows you how you can get addition and subtraction and the definition of numbers and incrementation. So, like, all of the yeah, all of the operations, and down here we can zeration the successor function, right? How we can replace the successor function with something that actually works. That's mentioned here. And somewhere down here we talk about, well, here's replacements for the imaginary numbers. It doesn't have a stupid name. It's not broken in that way. And it means a slightly different thing. It means a slightly different thing. So there's problems with the reals, and that is avoided here. There's problems with imaginaries, that is avoided here. There's problems with the rationals, saying things like the rationals are closed under division. Okay, so this isn't a set theoretic approach, but 0 is excluded from all of these categories because 0 is not a number. Okay, it lacks a magnitude, and it cannot be a bare magnitude. It can't be the magnitude of a vector. So treating 0 as a number, it's stupid. It's not. It's not part of these groups. It's excluded from these groups. And that solves a bunch of paradoxes that are present in set theory, set theoretic approaches like Sir Mello Frankel, which are like constantly like having to be partially fixed. Like, how many proofs do you have to be like, oh, all of the reals except for 0? Because it shouldn't have been included in any of the groups in the first place. Or you have problems like, how is it that the naturals are defined before the negatives, which means they're also defined before the positives, because positives are only positive because they are opposed to the negatives. How is it that the naturals are positive if they're right? If they precede the concept of sign, how are they all positive? How does that work? But canonically, they are. Like, there's just so much crap that doesn't make any sense, right? Or when you think about it, the negatives are definitely more fundamental, because a negative times a negative gives you a positive. Multiply it by a negative again, you get back to the negatives. Multiply it by a negative again, you go back to the positive, right? So you get positives and negatives out of negatives, but you can't go from the positives to the negatives in that way, right? You can't go from the positives to the negatives at all. You can't get there by adding, you can't get there by multiplying, you can't get there by dividing, you can't get there, right? And if you're doing subtraction, you're using a negative. So there is no way to go from the positives to the negatives, but we can go from the negatives to the positives and back again however much we want, very easily. And we can also go from the negatives into the imaginaries and back again. So the negatives are much more fundamental. So why are we treating the positives as fundamental? What dumbass came up with this shit? Are you serious? Yeah, this is just full of this kind of stuff, right? Or like the claim that 1 plus 1 is 2. Here you go. These things, this basic sort of problem is known to all toddlers. And toddlers are not known for their wisdom, right? Or the claim that the naturals are fundamentally ordered. Well, but 1 foot is more than 7 inches, an hour is more than 15 minutes, a kilogram is more than 2 pounds, a gallon is more than 3 liters. So here I have 1 is more than 7, 1 is more than 15, 1 is more than 2, 1 is more than 3. Where's this order that's allegedly there? Where 1 should be less than all of those according to canonical order. Also, how is order established in this? All we have is equals and the successor function. No explanation of how the successor function works, right? So I don't know that the successor function yields a value that's larger than x. I don't know that. I don't know that sometimes it yields a value larger and sometimes it yields a value smaller. I also don't know that there can't be x's in here that fall between an x and s of x. I don't know that. Like, nothing in here rules that out. So these don't remotely do what they're claimed to do. These axioms don't define natural numbers, the ordering of natural numbers, any of that shit, in the way that they're supposedly do, right? It doesn't tell me that they're positive. It doesn't tell me that they're not irrational. It doesn't tell me anything. It doesn't tell me shit. If you actually read through this and think through it, it doesn't do what it says it does. Right, and then here we have, I came up with a fourth solution candidate for Bertrand's paradox. To my knowledge, nobody else in the history of the paradox has come up with a fourth solution, but people will tell me that I don't understand, even though within 24 hours of first hearing about it, I came up with a fourth solution. So, yeah, I'm impressed at the hubris displayed by that claim, right? And I think obviously this claim is rooted in a reverence for paradoxes, which is a strange reverence for anyone to have since paradoxes only occur when you have no idea what the hell you're talking about. So, like, to have this arrogance, this hubris, right? And this reverence for being wrong is really interesting. And it's also something that's very commonly expressed amongst devotees of secular religions like science and mathematics. I've noticed this for several decades now. This has been something that is like very curious to me. Like, why is it that these people are so interested in paradoxes when what a paradox means is that you don't know what the hell you're talking about? But these are the people who think that they understand everything. They think they have a key to all knowledge and rigor. Really? Are you sure about that? Are you sure about that? So, yeah, I want this to be offensive to the right people. I want this to be unpalatable to the sorts of people that think that they already know everything, that would look at this and say, oh, you don't understand. I want this to be offensive to them. I want them to look at this and like throw up a little bit and like never come back to this. I want that. And I want regular, normal people to look at this and be like, holy shit, this is better than what those dickheads have. Let's stick with this. Right? This is a revolutionary document in like the Communist Manifesto sense. Like, I actually want a real revolution.